A viewer asked a question about the BTDX BT8000. Since I'd never heard of it, I thought, why not? The BT8000 is one of many ham HTs on AliExpress from sellers I'd never heard of. A viewer had a question about the BT8000, and since it was on sale at AliExpress, I ordered one to see what this little radio was all about. The radio is just a hair smaller than the Baofeng UV22 and is one of the radios that features two knobs on top, one for on and off in volume and the other for channel selection. The menu and exit keys do double duty with long and short press commands. A short press on the menu key opens the menu system, while a long press alternates between frequency and channel modes in the selected register. The exit key exits the menu with a short press and changes between upper and lower display or registers when not in the menu system. A long press opens a scan mode. The radio has transmit and receive capability from basically 136 MHz up to 520 MHz. It will also receive FM broadcast channels, AM airband, and NOAA weather info, depending on how you choose to program your side keys. The radio claims up to 10 watts. Now, I'm always skeptical on budget class radios, but the BT8000 did pretty well. I'll have a power output clip coming up, but on 2 meters, I got about 7 watts. The radio has 256 programmable channels, but no zones or banks to categorize your inputs, so you'll have to give some thought into how you're going to arrange the channels if you plan on adding a bunch of channels. I wasn't able to find the customer programming software at my usual sources, and the radio isn't listed as chirp compatible. I messaged the vendor through AliExpress, and they got back to me the next day with a link to the CPS. I'll include it in the video description below. Before we take a look at the radio in depth, let's talk a little bit about signal purity. As with many budget-class radios, the signal purity in the 2-meter band falls outside the FCC-defined limits for ham radio. I'll have a clip using my tiny SA Ultra later in the video. Let's now take a look at what you'll get. So here's the box that the BT8000 comes in. It's not a very big box, but it's not a very big radio, so let's take a look at what you get. First in what's in the box is the multi-band handheld radio user manual, and that's the BT8000 here pictured on it. And it's pretty typical of these Chinese radios. It's got some warnings, some information. It describes all of the icons that you'll see. It gives you a definition of what the various keys will do, some basic operations. It gives you a list of all the menu items and the variables that each menu item has. For example, here step goes from 2.5 up to 50,000 kilohertz in terms of the options that you have to set for it. And so there are a bunch of menus here up to 47, which is the version of the hardware and the software in the radio. Gives you some charging instructions and cleaning instructions and some basic instructions on some of the main functions of the radio. First, in terms of charging, it comes with a wall wart. Here with the USB-A there, and then a charging cable, USB-A on one side, USB-C on the other, to charge the radio. There's no charging cradle with this radio. Next, there's a little plastic bag with the belt clip, 2 screws for the belt clip. That's why it's still in the bag, so I don't lose those little rascals. The belt clip goes into the back of the battery, and then there's a wrist lanyard for those of you who like wrist lanyards. Last is the antenna. It's a little rubber ducky style antenna, though it's a little thinner than some, and so it's got some flexibility. You can see here the female side is here, and it's a dual band antenna. Now, one of the things that's kind of interesting about this antenna, it's got a knurled end, and so it's easy to grab onto. It's a little wider. It gives them some support because of that metal sleeve that's right there. Although as you get it tight in the radio, it does start to scrape against the inside of the SMA opening, so just be aware of that. But on balance, having a little extra support on the antenna is not a bad thing. Next, let's look at the radio. I got this from AliExpress. It's not sold by a USA seller, and so there's no FCC number on the back of it. It's identified as the model BT8000, 10 watts of power. We'll be checking that out here in just a few minutes with UHF and VHF bands. The battery says it's a 6,500 milliamp hour battery, and you can see it's pretty big and it feels pretty heavy. My guess is that it's more like 5,000, but I don't have a tester for that, and so we'll go with what's on the label. But it seems a little generous in the milliamp hour, but it's a 2-cell LiPo, so it's 7.4 volts. Battery snaps on real easy. It fits on some little hooks on the bottom, like this, a little bit below, and just a little bit of pressure, push up, and the little thing clip snaps right here. And since we're on the bottom of the battery, we'll stay here. There's the USB-C charging port, the LED indicator for the battery release. On this side, you've got the flap. It goes to the side instead of up or down for the K1 connector here, the big and little sockets there for inputs. On this side, we've got the push to talk, a programmable key 1 or side key 1, side key 2. And then on the top, there's the transmit receive LED. And then what's unique about this radio, as opposed to many in the budget class, is that it's got an on-off volume switch plus an encoder here to change channels or move through menus and that kind of thing. Here's the SMA connector. You see the spike there. That's the male end. And the antenna goes right there. Now, let's do a power on tour. So here you can see that it came on, it announced itself with a male voice, and you can see the major elements here. And I think it's almost becoming a rule that you have to take the screen protectors off here with these kind of reviews. So let me do that. And it's got a very nice display. You know, they've got the various icons. So this is dual watch showing right here. It's high power, a positive. Offset is displayed there because of that plus. It gives the frequency. I have had this on the programming software, so I've got some frequencies dialed in. This is a local repeater. In fairly small print, you've got the name of the repeater. And then in the bottom register, it's a frequency, it's high power, and you can see over here it's in VFO mode versus channel mode. So the upper one shows the frequency, the name I've given it, the channel number, and then the other icons across the top. The lower is the VFO mode, which shows you that you're in VFO mode, the frequency, and the power setting there. So it's a very nice display. You can also see along the bottom of the active band that there is a RSSI, radio signal strength indicator, and then a volume indicator there as well. Now I'm going to change this frequency a little bit so I don't hit the repeater. You can see up here the red A, so we know that that's active. And I want to go down. So I'm on the UHF call frequency here. In case I bump it, there's probably no one there. Now, one of the things you may have noticed when I was moving the channel is that these buttons, to me, seem to be backwards. So this one makes the frequency go down, the one pointing to the right, and then this one here makes the frequency go up, the one that's pointing to the left. And in my mind, that's backwards, but it's just something to get used to, like anything else. If you look, you can see here that the keyboard is illuminated. I have this set to stay on all the time right now for filming purposes, but you can set the number of seconds that you want the display to stay on. That'll maximize your battery life by not illuminating the display and the keypad. So as with most of these buttons go into the menu and then exit the menu. But because we don't have like band and VFO and that kind of stuff, these do double duty. So over here we've got an OK button, a quick press, puts it into menu, or the menu goes down from the right key, goes up with the left key, and exits with the exit key. A long press on the menu changes the frequency of the selected register to the frequency that was last in it. In this case, you can see I've got an airband frequency and it says AM, so it automatically translates that 118 to 136 into the AM modulation. I'm going to go out of that here. So I'm back in the channel mode. And then a long press on the exit starts the scanning. And so you can use that feature. I'll get out of that. And then over here we have the side keys. And so a short press on the orange side key turns on the FM radio. Another will turn it off. A long press on the orange turns on the alarm. I've got that set just for the local so it doesn't broadcast the alarm. A short press on the second side key, the black one, doesn't appear to do anything. A long press takes it into the monitor, and so it breaks the squelch. Let's go down here and see if it does anything in VFO mode. Nope. Nothing there. So that's pretty much how all that works. One of these turns on the weather, I think, but I don't remember exactly what turned the weather on at this point. So, yeah, well, it's there. But one of the things that is really impressive about this with the power on is the quality of the display. It's the light on black. It's easy to read, and it's got all the information you need, albeit some of the fonts are on the small side. So that's the power on tour of the BT8000. If you're finding this information helpful, please like the video and subscribe to the Gadget Talk channel. There's a join button below the video where you can learn more about becoming a channel member, and a thanks button to make a one-time contribution to show your support for what we do here. I really appreciate it. Now, let's take a look at the radio's power output. So let's take a look and see what we get for power output here on the BT8000. I'm transmitting into my MFJ power meter there, the 874, into a dummy load. I'm measuring the forward power, and because the radio claims to be a 10-watt radio, I've got it set on the 20-watt setting, and so we'll be reading the output on the second arc from the bottom. So here's the 2 meter. Let's see what we get. Okay, right there at 7 watts output. That's not bad for a budget class radio advertising 10 watts. So let's go up to the 220 band. So we're in 220. It's a little bit less, about 5.5 watts. Again, not bad on high power. And now in the 70 centimeter band, we'll take a look and see what we have here. Again, about 5.1, 5.2 watts on high power in the 70 centimeter band. So power output wise, this little BT8000 does pretty well. Here's that signal purity test I mentioned earlier. So let's take a look at the BT8000 signal purity. We'll take a look at the 2 meter band and the 1.25 meter band. So I've got my Tiny SA Ultra set right now for harmonics. I've got a 40 dB attenuator in line right over here, you see, and I'm broadcasting into it on the VHF. I think that's the activity channel 580. So let's press the talk and see what we get here. Let this settle down. Looks like it has. And so all in all, it is a, kind of a fairly dirty signal. It's kind of a mixed result. These here are right at that 16.02. So they're down there at, 25 microwatts of power, but they're not 40 dB below the fundamental. And so that would be technically a fail on this, which is not totally unexpected. So many of these inexpensive Chinese radios in 2 meters don't do all that well. So let's change this up to the 1.25 meter band and see what we get. So let's see what we get here. So we've got noise in the room. We've got just that primary signal. And so it's clean here on the 220 band. And 70 centimeters, I mean, we can test it, but the rules up at 70 centimeters are different, so I'm not going to bother to do that. So kind of dirty on the dirty side here at 2 meters, clean at 220. So that's our BT8000. In this clip, we'll take a quick snapshot of the BT8000's CPS. So here's the BT8000 CPS, and it looks like most of the other CPSs for these inexpensive Chinese radios. Icons here are a little different, but how it works is pretty much the same. Now to get started, I've gone and connected the radio to the programming cable and into my computer. I go to my settings to serial port and tell it which one it is. And so I can use Device Manager to determine that. I know that this serial cable or this programming cable comes up as COM4, so that is what I'm going to use. Now, you can see that I've imported this already. It was just a matter of touching the right button, telling it to start. I'll do that. And it takes only a few seconds to upload the information from the radio into the CPS. Now, these menus are familiar to you. They're like all Windows programs, you know, new, open, save, edit, the channel optional or DTMF. We'll look at those. Here's read and write. They're the same as these. The settings we just looked at. Tools allows you to import a picture for the screen when it powers on, if it's the proper size. And then Help About just gives you information about this particular software program. Now, I got this program from the seller. It was a link that I clicked on and downloaded it. And I'll have that in the video description below if you'd like to use it. It's not immediately available, but again, you can go to AliExpress and ask for it. Otherwise, look at the link below, and hopefully that will work for you. It certainly, obviously, did work for me. So how does all this work? Just a quick overview. The channel information is what we have displayed right now. And so I've input these using repeater book to get information, but it's really pretty easy. If you want to delete something, you just click on it, hit delete, and then when you click out of it, this whole row is going to disappear. If you want to add something, you just type it in here. And so I'll duplicate one just to show you, 146.520, the UHF call. Now when I click out of that, it completely fills in. The CTCSS and DCS are available here with drop-down boxes. I'm going to leave those off. If this were a repeater and this was the repeater output, you would have to type the repeater input here using the appropriate offset for the frequency band that you're in. We can go set the power, the bandwidth. We can set signaling. Here we can put our channel names in. As you can see, I put names in. I like to think in terms of names as opposed to channel numbers or frequencies. And then the frequency hopping here is encryption basically, which we as hams don't do here in the United States. And then the scramble is off for the same reason. So this is how you would add stuff in. Here we just hit that, and then if we click delete, click out, then it all goes. And so that's how you would manage this here. And so you can see I have a handful of VHF stuff, a handful of 70 centimeter, and then because this is a tri-band radio, I've got a couple of 220 band repeaters programmed in as well. So this works pretty good. It's a little tedious typing in numbers, but it is what it is. The next thing is to look at our optional features, and this is the menu in the radio. And so you can make these changes here using the CPS instead of maneuvering through the menu of the radio, and I like to do that. So here you can set the PF keys or the side keys. So PF2 is set to torch, a long press, which is the British term for flashlight. Long press is changing the transmitter power without going into the menu. And then PF3 is turning on the weather stations, the NOAA broadcast. I've got transmitter dual receive enabled, as well as the FM radio, the beep for the key presses, and then the A and B frequency modes. Sometimes you see this under a VFO menu drop down, but it's just where the VFO is going to start, and you can make those changes as you need. Here you can see channel A, I've got channel and name, and channel B, the lower register, I've got channel and frequency. Work mode A comes up as VFO, and I want that to come up as channel, so I'll make a change, and then I'll leave work mode B as VFO. Not using TMF. The receiver tone is 1750, generally not used in the United States. A lot of European repeaters use an access tone, subaudible tone, and you can see these other things are all listed, and you can make those choices to meet your particular need. And then again, we go up to edit and we go into our DTMF editor, and if you use DTMF encoding for various things, here is an input box for you to use. Now when we're done, what I would recommend is going to File and using Save As and saving this into a folder labeled with this radio's name. I usually use the date, the year, the date, and then the radio's name as the file name. So if I mess things up, I can just go back to the most recent working file and then download it into my radio, and then I don't have to reprogram it all. When I'm done with that, I'm going to click Write, I'm going to hit Start, and as you can see, the little progress bar goes in, and since I don't have a lot of stuff, it doesn't take long for me to do. The radio has rebooted, and so that's a quick overview of the BT8000 CPS. The BT8000 I received had the brand Bonterra on the faceplate. I've seen some comments that said that there are other labels as well. That's not unusual for budget class Chinese radios. The other thing that's not unusual for radios in the budget class is dirty signals in the 2-meter band. A clean budget class radio seems to be more the exception than the rule. As you saw in the clip, the harmonics weren't 40 dB below the fundamental, but were below the 25 microwatt limit. Do with this as you wish. The 1.25 meter and 70 centimeter band seemed pretty clean. If you're using the 1.25 meter band, you'll probably want to have an antenna tuned to that band. In terms of aesthetics, the BT8000 has a nice clean appearance, seems well built, although it doesn't have an ingress protection score or rating. I also like these new radios with a second knob for channel changes like the BT8000. The screen is big and colorful, and it shows all the important information about the channel or frequency you have selected. Join me over here for my amateur radio playlist, where I have several reviews on new radios, as well as my list of 2024's best new ham radios. Please be sure to like the video and subscribe to the Gadget Talk channel. Thanks for watching, and 73.